right. So I will call the Finance Committee meeting for October 12th to order. And first item is roll call. Alder Galvin.
Here.
Alder Corpus Dax.
Here.
Alder Dorfus here. And Alder Johnson will be joining us. He had another obligation of ribbon cutting. So he'll be joining us probably in a little bit. I'll entertain a motion for approval of the agenda, except that I would like the motion to ask for item 3 to be moved to first under regular business.
So moved.
Okay, moved by Alder Galvin, seconded by Alder Corpus Dax to amend the agenda to have all item 3 moved to item 1. And then, okay, all those in favor of moving it, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Now I'll entertain a motion on acceptance of the amended agenda.
So moved.
Moved by
Second.
Alder Galvin, second by Alder Corpus Dax. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And we will now go to approval of the minutes.
So
So moved. Second.
Moved by Corpus Dax, second by Alder Galvin. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carries. We will now start regular business with item number 3. Referred to reimburse the property owner at 1236 Thrush Street $1,077.93 for removal of 3 street trees to be funded out of the contingency account. Alder Stoyer, did you want to speak to that first?
Well, I'm here. So we lengthy conversation or discussion at Parks, and then also I think this might be the third go around if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, in a nutshell, one of my constituents lives at 1236 Thrush, and he lives on a corner. So on the west corner, there's a sidewalk. On the north corner, there's no sidewalk. And the 3 trees that he had in the front, he cut, or he had a contractor come in and cut them down. Found out later that they were city trees. He admitted his mistake. He spent he spent 30, I'm trying to think what the number was.
3,500, I think.
500 to cut them.
500.
And he admitted to the mistake. And I know there was argument on both sides on this. We don't want to set a precedent, et cetera. And I understand that whole dynamic. But Director Ditchite, he can talk about it as well too. But what the Parks Department did, they went and figured out how much it would have cost for the city to come in and take those 3 trees down. So it came out to $1,077.93, which is about 1/3 the cost of what this gentleman. I'm more upset with the contractor. The contractor should have known better, but that's another story. So anyway.
Oh, sorry. Just tell a little bit about the trees, Alder Stoyer. Why did he take the trees?
Oh, why he took them down? They were dying or dead.
Because they were ash.
They had ash borer. They had emerald ash borer. Thank you for getting me to the point.
No, that's okay.
I like telling stories. Anyway, so that was it. And he asked to see if he could get reimbursed. And the Parks Committee came up with that $1,077.93 after, Director Ditchite had brought that forward. So that's it. It's kind of, do we want to set a precedent, or it was an honest mistake? The gentleman had admitted to it, and that's what happened. So leaving it to the committee.
Well,
And I'd like to hear next from someone from the Parks Committee, which would be Alder Gerlach, to explain even more because I don't know if the rest of you were at those committee meetings. I was at them all, so I did hear about it, but you guys need to hear about it fresh. Go ahead, Alder Gerlach.
Thank you. And I want to be very clear that I don't represent the Parks Committee because I'm the only member of the committee that voted against this. I represent my position. I want you to vote against this. I think that I'll just maybe did not represent Director Ditchite's position exactly correctly. And Director Ditchite is on the call and he can correct this if he needs to, but he did not offer to figure out how much the city would have spent to cut these 3 trees down. He was asked to figure that out, and then he
Oh,
brought
that's fine.
that figure to us. Now, I want to tell you that this young man who has been very respectful and he's asked for this humbly and said, I made an honest mistake. He was perfectly happy to spend $3,500 to cut those trees down until he found out they were the city's trees. Then he brought the bill to the city and he said, well, they're your trees, you pay for them. And I hope everyone understands that if you cut down a city tree, if it has any inherent value, you are assessed for that inherent value. Nobody gives you any money back. They charge you more for the value of the trees you destroyed. Now, these trees didn't have any value. But something else that I don't know if the reason it came to finance is there is no money in Parks, Recreation, and Forestry to pay for this because the forestry program is funded through stormwater. So we can't go to the water utility and ask them to pay for it. So it came to finance against my wishes. I did not want it to go forward at all. Something that you might not know is that our forester, who makes the decisions about what trees are healthy and what trees need to come down, has created a very comprehensive program for caring for and in many cases destroying these ash trees. He has provided us with information that shows that we have about 4,600 ash trees in the city. And already they've identified almost 2,000 of them to be removed, about half in the first wave and half in the second wave. This is, as I said, a comprehensive program. It will take many years to accomplish, but it's created by someone who is a degreed, experienced forester. It's not somebody who just had a hunch that maybe the trees could come down. Now, when you see this report, it's gone back to the staff for a little bit more financial information, but when you see it, you'll see that it's laid out in aldermanic districts. So you can see exactly how many ash trees are in your district and how many are diseased and when they're scheduled to come down. I'm among the top 3 districts with ash trees that need to come down. I have stood on a street with a constituent who has pointed to this tree and that tree and 10 trees and said, they all should come down right now. If you vote to reimburse this gentleman for the mistake he made, I believe you are setting a precedent, and I absolutely firmly believe other people will start cutting down trees because they come down, and they'll come to us at the Parks Committee and ask for their money back, and I won't, but the rest of the committee will send them to you to ask you to pay them back. And we are going to have a disaster. We have about 2,000 dead ash trees, or very close to dead ash trees right now. We have a forestry crew taking care of this. I think we need to leave it alone. As frustrated as we don't want to put it in the hands of the citizens to just make their own decisions and then come and say, now pay me back. So I would hope that you would vote against this, and thank you for the time to say that.
Thank you. Now, is your constituent here today? Because someone named Brian Pilot has his hand up.
I'm not sure he's here right now.
Brian Pilot is our forester.
All right. Sorry. Yeah, I knew that was a familiar name. And maybe our Brian Pilot wants to talk. He has got his hand up. So yes, Brian, I will call on you next. Are you there, Brian?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm just listening. I don't have my hand up. If it showed up that way, I'm not wanting to speak. I'm just here to listen.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's actually, there's a little hand on your screen right now, but okay.
No, I'm sorry.
That's all right. Director Ditchite, did you want to chime in on this a bit?
Yeah, just a couple of points of clarification here. So as Alder Gerlach mentioned, typically when somebody cuts down a street tree that's not approved, the city does have the right to fine that individual for the value of the street tree. In this situation, they were all dead ash trees. Our forester was going to remove them later on this winter, but we had not marked them at the time that this resident removed the trees. So honest mistake on his end. He thought they were private trees. They were not. We caught it as the contractor was just finishing up the job. So we told the contractor that they had to pull off the job, and we would finish it. And really all that was left to do was remove the 3 stumps by the time we found out. So we were directed by the Parks Committee just to determine how much it would cost the city had we removed the trees instead of the contractor. And so that's how the number of $1,077.93 came up. So you'll see in the agenda packet a summary of what's made up of that expense. So that had the city removed those trees, that's what we would have, the expenses we would have incurred. That being said, the one point of clarification that I do want to make is that we don't have in our forestry budget a line item for contracting out services. And so it was the wish of the Parks Committee that this come out of contingency. And that's why it was forwarded to the Finance Committee for discussion and review.
Alders, I would certainly like you to ask questions.
Yep, I've got a whole bunch.
Okay. Alder Galvin.
Because this is something that's really irritated me a lot. And I'm going to be putting forth a communication that all tree services in this area have to be licensed by the city prior to being able to do any work within the community. Because this has happened far too many times. In my district alone, I've had several maple trees, healthy maple trees, cut down by residents on city trees. I mean, they got tickets, yay. But these trees were 40 or 50 years old. You won't see them replaced anytime soon. There was an incident in your district, Alderdorf, before you were in Alder, where somebody didn't like the fact that trees along the bay were obstructing their view of the water, and they had a company go in and clear cut the trees for quite a bit of distance there. And we never found out who did it, and they got away with it. It seems like here, if you want to put on a sidewalk or do any kind of work like that, you have to be licensed by the city. You have to obtain permits to do the work. And I hate to have government seem like it's piling on, but how else do we stop this from taking place? This gentleman here, like Alder Gerlach said, was perfectly happy to pay for this work out of his pocket until he found out it was the city's responsibility, and suddenly he wants reimbursement. And we don't have the money. In less than a month, in fact, in a couple of weeks, we're going to hear the usual moaning and groaning about the city budget. And we're going to have Alder sitting there nitpicking and cutting and dicing monies from different departments. And yet here we sit here, we give people who do something wrong a pat on the back and say, let's give them some money for their effort too. I don't see it and I don't understand it. I could see if someone got a raw deal, the city told him to remove the trees and it turned out that those weren't his trees. Yeah, reimburse them. Of a sidewalk section in front of my home, and I do it without notifying the city or anything else. It comes out of my pocket. If I work with the city will the sidewalk that needed to be removed was the city's responsibility. They'll reimburse me what they would have spent on it themselves. But the park department doesn't have a budget for that. Their budget is the 40 hours a week that we budget for these employees to be cutting these trees down themselves. And I agree with Alder Gerlach. I've got lots of neighbors with ash trees. And I could see where some people are going to start cutting them down themselves if they think they're going to get reimbursed. I mean, this guy didn't get a citation, did he? For cutting down the trees?
He did not.
No,
he did not.
No. And he probably should have. Let him deal with that too on top of it. I mean, I understand people want these trees gone. A tax bill, the first thing they do is they start whining and crying about how high their taxes are. If we want to budget for this, we can, but what are we going to get? We're going to get the same stuff again. So I don't feel for this gentleman. He was willing to pay for it out of his pocket, and then suddenly he finds out he made a mistake, and now he wants the city to reimburse him. I'm not in favor of this at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Corpus Dax, any thoughts?
I'm in agreement with Alder Gerlach and Alder Galvin. I get it, it was a mistake, but he chose to do it. He was perfectly happy to pay somebody to to remove those trees. Only after the fact to realize that, you know what, they're city property, the city should be responsible for those. I get it. I do feel for him that he spent the money, but he chose to do that. And it does concern me that if we reimburse him, that we're going to have other people not realizing that it's city trees and then paying someone to do it and then saying, oh, well, sorry, these were city trees. I'd like to be reimbursed. I have a lot of trees in my area. You know, it could be a big deal. It could be a costly mistake.
Thank you. So now I'll tell you my take unless someone else wants to talk. Anybody else want to talk? Okay. I strongly encouraged Alder Weary and Alder Burnett to attend this meeting because I knew that this probably would happen. They in turn, well, Alder Weary in turn said that we'll just discuss it at council. Alder Scannell was the one that made the motion to take it out of contingency. I'm not sure he felt as strongly about reimbursing as Alder Weary and Alder Burnett seemed to at the Parks Committee meetings, but I was in favor of what Alder Gerlach was talking about. And when they brought the motion up to refer it to contingency, that at that point I spoke and said, then you will have to bring this to finance because you can't spend contingency money from this Parks Committee. And that's how it got here. That's how it got to finance. So I think we will vote tonight. I'm not sure, no matter what we do, we may end up having a discussion up on it. I'm very disappointed that the homeowner didn't at least show up tonight. I thought perhaps.
I think he knew about it.
Why wouldn't he know? I was very clear at the meeting. He did know about it. It declared that this was going to happen and be discussed. So he knew about it because he was at that other meeting. Okay. Anyone else have anything to say before I ask for motion? I will accept a motion.
Motion to deny.
Motion to deny by Alder Galvin.
Second.
Second by Alder Clerk of Denial. Say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Okay, this motion is denied, and we will perhaps be talking about it at council. All right. Now back to item number 1. Consideration with possible action to allow staff to proceed with investment advisory services with Ehlers and Associate Incorporated. Director Ellenbecker, did you want to talk on this?
Really, we have representatives on the line from Ehlers. It's a service that we don't currently have, but we think that financially it would be a great return if we had someone help manage our investments. So really, if you have questions, again, there's a presentation that they could run through if you would like. Our treasurer, Pam Manley, is on the line to also answer questions. If you have any questions on this new service.
Who currently manages our?
And that is our treasurer. That is our assistant finance director treasurer that manages all investments. That would be Pam Manley.
All right. Is Pam available for a question?
Yeah, I'm
She's
here.
Treasurer Manley, when you take these monies and invest them, what processes do you have to help you decide whether you're doing making good decisions or how to make those decisions?
The first thing I do is I look at our investment policy. I'm restricted by what our investment policy says on what I can invest in.
Okay.
Secondly, I use 2 different brokers that are constantly emailing me different things that fall within our investment policy that they believe would be good investments for us. And then I look at those and decide whether or not I think we should purchase them or not. As things come due, they'll send out other items and say, do you want this? And give me a few options and I can say yes or no. When the market turned here and everything, interest rates dropped, bottomed out, we actually had a lot of our investments that were callable be called. So I don't actually have a ton of investments out there right now. Most of the city's funds are liquid, which allows us to go and use Ellers to invest a little further out and ladder a bunch of our investments. I'm optimistic, and I'm just about certain that Ellers is going to be able to have a better return than I could. I just don't have the time to sit there and compare investments to other investments and go back out to the other brokers and ask, well, do you have this? What can you offer? I'm just kind of looking at what's coming through and saying yes or no and move on. I got to get back to my other work. So,
All right. I understand you're new to this position.
Alder Johnson has joined us. I just want to put that on the record. Okay, go ahead.
But do you have any figures that you could tell us what have the returns been over the last, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, 5 years? I mean, I know it's been up and down and all around, but just to give us an idea.
yeah, let me just pull up. We do keep track of KPIs annually, and I can tell you that. I've been in this position just over 4 years now. Let me see. KPIs, finance.
While Pam is looking, I just want to mention, is it right that it would cost around $20,000 a year? That's what I took from reading. I didn't see an amount, but then it said investment advisory fee is assessed monthly from interest earnings. And then,
Correct. It would be a flat, go ahead. I mean, it would be a flat fee based on the amount that is being invested. So the more that they invest, the bigger the return, then it's a share of that, that fee is a percentage. And actually we do have representatives on the line. We have Tammy, and we also have Ryan on the line, that if you wanted to open the floor, they could explain how the fees worked.
Okay.
we'll get through Alder Galvin's first. I was wondering,
So
but we'll get to that.
Alder Gavin, so you're looking to see kind of what kind of return we have. Like in the end of 2016, we were making about 0.71 was about the yield to maturity. To 18, we were up to 2. Currently,
Right.
mouse here, with the rates dropping, LGIP is only at 0.05. LGIP used to be at 2.37. So our rates just have dropped. Are you talking total revenue earned that you're looking for?
Yeah, I mean, if it's going to cost 20,000 roughly, and if the market does better, it goes up and it goes down. I mean, is it worth having someone doing that, or just better off having you get these contacts from these brokers? I mean, my cousin Vinny's out there. He's got some great investments strategies for you. But is the juice worth the squeeze in the end? And I also understand if this takes some workload off of your shoulders, which allows you to do your treasury work better. I'm in favor of that also. So
the estimated return, Alder Galvin, was an extra $100,000 with a $20,000 expense. They thought they could bring in an extra $80,000 next year.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Anything else, Alder Galvin?
No, thank you.
Alder Johnson?
Thank you, Alder Dorf. And Assistant Director Manley, I apologize if you shared this before I hopped on the call, but what amount in aggregate typically are we investing?
With our meeting with Ellers, they thought we could, I believe it was $26-27 million easily invest out there longer term. I said currently most of our money is liquid. Everything that could get called got called. A lot of our CDs that we had the better rates on, that were 3-year CDs, have now come due and matured. So we definitely could do 27 million. We said that would be a conservative amount. We could invest more than that, but we may keep some of our investments at some of the local banks that we currently have. But there's certainly some of the money that we have sitting in LGIP we could go invest long term with Ellers here.
Okay, and quite frankly, and I don't want you to take this as an offensive comment, but I'm actually very surprised that we're doing this in-house. I honestly didn't realize that. That's a very big lift and expectation, I think, for someone who doesn't do that full time. And so these numbers don't surprise me at all when we're talking about returns. And I think having those investments reside with someone who has that real specialized area of expertise that does this every single day Again, I'm just surprised we're not already doing that. So I definitely would support that transition.
I think since we have Ellers online, if they would like to say a few words, maybe. we
Motion to
could
open the floor.
Okay, motion to open the floor by Alder Johnson,
Second.
second by Alder Galvin. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
I can't hear anybody. Okay, all right, the floor is now open.
Great. Good
Ryan, go
evening,
ahead.
Good evening, aldermen and women. Thank you for your time tonight. My name is Ryan Miles. I'm the managing director here of our investment team with Ellers, and Tammy Olszewski is also on the line. And to Alderman Johnson's point, this is what we do every day, and we are also a fiduciary for the clients that we serve, which is actually very different from a broker that you're buying investments from. So really view ourselves as an auxiliary staff member at a lower price, right? So we're able to fully manage the investments according to the city's investment strategy and cash flow needs and capital projects and your budget constraints, and working underneath and alongside and with Pam and Diana to then craft an investment strategy that fits your goals. And so we really view ourselves as a in this, along with your municipal advisory relationship. And it's the same type of fiduciary responsibility that we're captaining the funds and managing the funds, certainly talking to the brokers, executing on those strategies, reporting to you on a quarterly or annual basis, however you would like us to be involved in that process, and provide that level of transparency and what the returns have been. But really connecting a strategy to the funds is the biggest driver of this. So callable bonds are great, but if the strategy isn't right and things got called and now we're stuck with a bunch of cash, like I think it's not only safety of the portfolio is key, but a reliable long-term rate of return, a consistent rate of return that could be built in for your budget going forward, so that every year you're not necessarily at the whim of, is it going to be 0.5% or 2% or 5% or what's the rate of return. So really our perspective is, safety of the portfolio, making sure that there's liquidity along the way, and then certainly yield, but the yield needs to be a reliable rate of return from a budget projection perspective. So we'd love the opportunity to partner with you and extend the Ellers relationship as a benefit to the city.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Miles?
What's reliable, like 15, 20%?
That'd be great.
That would be great if we were in 1985 and buying treasure.
Okay. Would you guys like to close the floor then if there's no other questions?
Motion to close the floor?
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Motion to close the floor by Alder Johnson, second by Alder Corpus Dax. All those in favor of closing the floor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries and the floor is now closed. So I will entertain a motion.
Move to approve or engage in an agreement with Ehlers and Associates.
Second.
Okay, good. Motion by Alder Johnson, second by Alder Corpus Dax. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Motion carries. Thank you. Welcome aboard, Ehlers. I should say, how do you pronounce it? Ehlers? No.
It's
Ellers.
It's Ellers, actually. Yep.
Ellers.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you all. We look forward to working with you.
All right. Now, number 2, consideration with possible action on the acceptance of the 2021 Port Security Grant of $83,190 with a 25% local match required of $27,730. Diana, do you want to talk about this a minute?
I'm actually going to turn it over. There's quite a few people from the police department, and I also have the IT director on the line. I am going to let them speak to this grant.
Okay, who would like to speak from the police department?
Hi, Alders. Chris Davis here. My camera stopped working for some reason.
It sure did, Chief, but go ahead.
I've who has done a lot of work on this just on our end to talk about this. I know there's a significant piece of this that impacts IT. And so I can just ask him if it's helpful for you to just give a brief overview of it. And we're primarily here just to answer any questions that you all have.
Matt, would you like to speak?
Yes, I can just give you the quick rundown of the history of the Port Security Grant. Started back in, I believe, 05. I started to help coordinate it about, I don't know, 6 to 8 years ago, approximately. Basically, DHS and FEMA every year put together the grant based on national security, their national security strategy, and their priorities. For 21, the priority was cybersecurity, as a lot of us have seen in the news as of, I mean, let's face it, for the last year plus, a lot of cyber security issues out there. So that was the national priority for this port grant year. And because of that, I reached out in-house to Jason Bamman within our IT office, and then brought in Mike Ronick as well and said, do you have any identified means or needs that we could put in for this grant, and that would fit the parameters that FEMA and DHS put out there for us. And I cannot do justice to explain what Mike Ronick and his crew put together, but I just wanted to kind of give you the background of how the PD kind of fits into this piece, and it is the coordination of identifying local City of Green Bay security needs, and then applying it in such a way that meets the national priorities as well. We actually put in for 5 investments and only 2 were selected, and those were the cyber pieces. And Mike, unless you have questions for me, Mike can probably take it from there.
Okay, thank you. Mike?
Good evening. What we were going to do with the grant is fund employee training, cybersecurity training, which would also include elders. We have all received spam emails asking, hiding, like the author was the mayor, and they were quickly giving gift cards out. We want to identify software like that and teach our employees to, that is spam. And another aspect is admin training. We recently purchased Microsoft 365. There's a lot of ability inside that software to manage information policies, retention policies, data governance. So we would get admin training in that. And then we also purchased next generation firewall. This would increase our internet bandwidth and give us greater visibility on our network, what is happening inside of it. Jason Bamman, who is also on this in this meeting, has done a lot of the work, a lot of the initial work in investigating employee training. And if he'd like to discuss his initiatives, feel free, Jason.
Go ahead, Jason.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The big thing that we've seen as far as the cybersecurity training side of it is that, we're trying to both, mitigate the highest risk factor when it comes to cybersecurity events, which is always the human element of it. So what our goal is to educate all of our user base, as well as, anyone that's going to be tapping into any of our network resources, including Alderman, and, just as Mike spoke to, but also working on, building up kind of the workforce resilience on the cybersecurity side for our IT staff. So what that's going to do is help us get to, conforming to more national standards. We have the National Institute of Standards and Technology. So just trying to get it to where we can find out what's going on within the cybersecurity realm today and make sure that all of our configurations and all of our, current things are up to date for the current threats that we're facing, along with the additional, hardware and software we'll be getting to kind of mitigate the actual outsider threats as much as possible.
So the one question I have, where will we get the match, the $27,730?
Our current firewall is 5 years old, and in the upcoming years, that was scheduled for replacement. And the replacement of that was in our CIP, and that was a minimum of $30,000.
Okay.
So we could use that, what was in our CIP, to fund this program.
Sounds good.
It would be kind of a wash, and we'd get a lot more education training. And also, the finance department, speaking of them, from the previous conversation, every year they get a financial audit, and part of that audit is cybersecurity. We are asked many questions by their auditor that we really should be putting in place many of the policies that this grant will allow us to.
Okay. Alders? Alder Johnson?
Really not a question, but look, if our staff says, hey, this is the best use of the money that you've already budgeted for us, and this is a formality for accepting the grant to get more money, I would move to approve and tip my cap to staff for a good job writing the grant.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any more questions or comments from the alders? No? All right, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed nay. Motion carries. Thank you so much for bringing this to us. It looks like this is going to be good for our security, and boy, the financing is a wash. So great job to get more money even.
Thank you. Thank you, Matt. Susan.
Okay, so we are done with regular business. Informational, the contingency account is at $104,650. Now, for the next finance meeting, that's the night, one of the nights of the mayor's budget, community budget hearings that many of the alders want to go to. I'm sure Diana might be expected to go to that. And so I propose that we move that meeting, instead of starting at 4:30, we start at 3, because the budget meeting for the mayor starts at 5:30, and we want to be sure we're done with finance and personnel. So does the committee have any objection to moving that to 3 o'clock for that one night?
No.
It should be fine. Just remind me.
Oh, we'll remind you. Alder Johnson?
Can't hear you.
We can't hear you, and you don't seem to be muted.
I was saying, I was just looking at my calendar. It should be fine.
Okay. All right. So then the next finance committee meeting will be held Tuesday, October 26th, and we'll begin at 3 o'clock. And I will now entertain a motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Alder Corpus Dax, second by Alder Galvin. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed nay. Motion carries.
Are we
So
starting
should we
right
just
away?
Yeah, should we just move right on to personnel,
Yep.
you guys?
Yep.
Okay. All right. See you at personnel.